Looking into the future, the beginner faces a choice that leads him to the triumph, or not. Being surrounded by like-minded professionals can be the best guarantee that you actually take that crucial career step.
SportIn Global is a digital network for sports jobs. It gives you the chance to be involved in the sports industry no matter who you are, regardless of gender, nationality, and experience.
Our AI system matches up talent with human resources. Candidates who align with the company's values and needs immediately get shortlisted. It saves time for HR and increases the opportunities available to applicants.
The platform identifies tailor-made recommendations based on user needs, so you're always aware of the possibilities out there right now.
SportIn Global is a place where students gain key tips about jobs and build the valuable connections that are essential for people at the beginning of their career path.
The path from candidate to champion starts with a single step in the right direction. Sign up to SportIn Global.
SportIn Global, the best way to enter the sports industry.
Neel Shah. Neel has nearly 2 decades of experience working in the development and commercialization of football across North America, Europe, and India, and has been in the forefront connecting the East with the West through sport. He worked with a number of high-profile football clubs to establish or build their businesses within India, including FC Barcelona, Manchester United, and Liverpool FC. He has also helped grow Major League Soccer's fan base for a period of 7 years as the league's director of fan development and grassroots marketing. Currently, he's the person behind the conceptualization and establishment of India's first industry-designed sports management education program, the Global Institute of Sports Business. Neel Shah, I welcome you to the SportIn Global Summit.
Thank you so much, Christian. How are you doing?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Doing very well. I want to thank you, Ole, Eduardo, everyone at SportIn Global for having me on today. I'm coming to you from Mumbai, India. So I'm gonna just jump in and see if I can share my screen. Okay, I think I got it. You got it? Christian, are you able to see the screen?
We see it.
Okay, perfect. So I'm just gonna jump right in. I know I've got about 15 minutes to take everyone through a little bit of what's happening in the world of technology, data, and the future of sport in India. Before going into the facts and figures of what's happening over here in this country, in those particular areas, I think it's important just to understand what's happening in the country in general that's making India so attractive to many international sports organizations, sports stakeholders that are looking to expand their business and expand their impact around the world. So the first number, and many of these numbers you might have seen, but I can't help but emphasize how important they are. And I'll give a little bit of my own inputs on each of them. 600 million people under the age of 35. You know, it's not just a number. I grew up in the US, but my parents grew up in India. And when they were, the 1950s, 60s, 70s, when they were in India, when they were under 35, they were really inspired by the West. They were aspiring for the West. And it's very different now. They're intrigued by the West, let's say. Now the youth generation, the under 35-year-olds, are consuming the West. They're consuming it on a day-to-day basis. It's a very different demographic in terms of their consumption than it was before, and especially consumption of what's happening. And when I say West, I'm just talking about even a lot of what's happening in global sport. 627 million internet users. The US has a population of 335 million people in general. In India, we have almost double the amount of people online, and that's growing on a daily basis. So it's something we'll talk about in a bit. And 300 million TV households. This is also interesting. Years ago, there was just a couple of channels. Doordarshan was a popular one here, and everyone was kind of watching these few channels. Now the diversity of content that's out here in India and all the different things we have access to is unreal. We had a coach from FC Barcelona that we were setting up here years ago, and we got him set up in his home, and I caught up with him for coffee a few days later, and I was just asking him how he's doing. And the first thing he said was, Neel, I can watch more football on my TV here in India than I can in my house in Spain. It's just because of the media rights deals, the amount of kind of access to content of any type of football or a lot of other sports properties that are happening. From a sporting perspective, you have $6.95 billion of broadcaster investment. Yes, most of it is going to cricket, but what it shows is that there is an appetite from broadcasters to invest large amounts of money in the sporting ecosystem and in buying rights, essentially. And this makes India the second largest media market in the world for sport. Similar on the second one, $1.1 billion in sponsorship investment. Yes, much of it is in cricket, but again, it shows the appetite for corporates to go and sponsor sport. They're learning a lot of best practices and putting this much money into a sponsorship deal and activating against it. And now, over the last few years, you're seeing sponsorship deals go a bit higher in kabaddi and football and other sports as well. And 54% of Indians are consuming sports on digital platforms. We'll touch on this a bit more, but this is fascinating. Even though we have hundreds of millions of people watching TV in their homes, sports is one of those pieces of content, or it's an entertainment vehicle that people are choosing to watch on digital platforms, and we'll see why. Now, when we talk about sports tech in India, which is really the topic of today, sports tech. So when you think of India, actually, think about certain things come up, and there's many things. India is a very diverse country, but Bollywood or cricket starts to come up, and it's not a surprise that Bollywood and cricket have found a marriage, and now Bollywood and sports have found a marriage with owners of a lot of IPL teams having Bollywood celebrities a part of the teams. There's a lot of Bollywood films around focused on sport that have been very popular. Something else when I travel around the world and I talk to people about India, another term that comes up is technology, and it's not a surprise. India is it's an innovation hub. It's a lot of enterprising people that are here, and it's not a surprise that tech and sport over the last few years have started to kind of get into a very intimate relationship. And you have different areas where you're seeing technology play a role in the sporting landscape, and activity and performance, of course, with wearables and performance analytics, and just helping people reach their full potential as an athlete. Of course, content. We didn't have a lot of great content. We had some great cricket content, but just general sports content about Indian sports and even global sport from an Indian perspective. So we're seeing some more startups and different companies set up around this space. The two areas that I've seen really grow are management and organization, and games and betting. Years ago, when I moved to India 10 years ago, and even up until like 6 or 7, if I was hungry and I wanted to have some food delivered to my house, I would call the restaurant and they would deliver, and that was it. And now there's so many apps in India where food can, even something as small as a cookie can get delivered to your house within sometimes 10 minutes from any of the local restaurants. And everything has shifted onto apps. It's not any different in sports. 7 or 8 years ago, when I was trying to get a game of football in Delhi or Mumbai where I was living, and I would have to call the turf provider, find out what their slots are open, call some friends, and it was like this puzzle piece of trying to figure out how to make it all work out. And now it's completely different. If I want to play any sport, really, I can just go online and on an app and find people who want to play, find turfs that are open, and within a couple of clicks, I can play. And it's same with coaching for younger athletes in India. There's a lot of companies that are providing coaching services where a coach will just come to your house, or you'll know where coaching clinics are happening. So even if you're not part of a team and you want to get proper training, you can get that. In games and betting, so fantasy sports, I'm going to touch on a bit more. Betting is not legal in India in terms of sports betting, but there are a lot of companies who are planting their seeds in the country to, with the hope that sports betting does become legal. It's a very hot topic in the country. I won't talk about it in my 15 minutes here, but it's something that could revolutionize sports in India if it does open up a bit more. And the other thing I'll say on this slide is that years ago also, you would see more international companies coming to India to provide services. And and they were expensive and not necessarily connected to what the Indian landscape exactly needed or what the Indian landscape could absorb at that time in terms of resources, knowledge of this data. But so much has shifted where now Indian companies are setting up shop, which you see here with all these logos, but you're also seeing a lot of international companies setting up shop in India to understand the market. And Catapult's a great example of a company that's done that. And it's not, as I talk about India being a sports or a tech hub, and sport is so growing big over this country. 41% of Asia's sports tech startups are based in India, which is, also we have 1.3 billion people in this country, but it's a exciting number for us here in the country. And 4 of the top 10 Asian sports tech cities are based in this country. So Bangalore being the top, and then Mumbai, where I live, New Delhi, and Chennai, all great cities where there's a lot of innovation happening around sports and sports tech. In terms of why this is all happening, there's many, many reasons why there's this boom in sports technology happen. But one of the reasons why, at least this is my opinion, but also belief of many experts in the field, is data is just really cheap here. You look at this graph, data for 1 gigabyte data, it's 26 cents in this country, and it is extremely inexpensive to get data, and it's almost getting easier and easier as the infrastructure gets better and better. And what that's done is it's allowed for the smartphone population to grow. So even smartphones, you can get some decent ones at a relatively inexpensive rate. And why that's important is that means people in rural communities who may not have the same level of income as people sitting in Mumbai or Delhi or other tier 1 cities can go out and buy smartphones and get access to cheap data where they can consume anything they want to really consume that's online. It's also allowed the gaming industry, just general gaming, not just esports, to be valued at $43.8 billion and said to be reaching $118.8 billion in 2023. And fantasy is really picked up. As I will touch on it a bit more, but as of last year, there's over 100 million fantasy active users of fantasy sports in India, and that's it's a great number, and it's a number that's definitely growing as time goes on. And I know I'm speaking a lot of positive about India, and the one thing I'd say that's kind of where there's a gap in this country is while data is very important in sports and is very important in sports in India, the amount of money that's spent on data in within the Indian sports landscape, the Indian sports industry is very minimal, and especially in non-cricket sports. And one of the reasons why, it's not that we don't value it here, it's just that it's a different landscape. Our seasons are shorter. Even the IPL is, a very tight season. ISL is now a little bit longer, but it's not the regular typical 8-9 month seasons that you see around the world. So Pro Kabaddi League is also a few weeks long, and same with table tennis and so on. So you don't end up spending as much on data. Also, the budgets are tighter. You're going to see infrastructure. So whereas you have nice, beautiful stadiums in some parts of the world, still in India, we're getting there. So sometimes the investment that you have and even data integrated into the stadium and the consumer fan experience is going to be a lot less. Beyond all that, the traditional revenue streams like ticketing and merchandising, which are no-brainers around the world, they're still growing, especially in non-cricket sports, which means that you're not going to spend as much money on market research and other areas that's going to help you generate a bit more revenue there, because it's still not as evolved. And the final one is scouting. Scouting is something that we find extremely important here. However, it's not really as evolved as you would find in other countries as well. But regardless, we have companies that are servicing the technical side. Here's just a couple that we work closely with. We have companies servicing the commercial side as well. And this will continue to grow. The good thing is that the seeds have been planted. I wanted to highlight fantasy sports. It's really the talk of of India right now in terms of the startup and tech space, just because, and we'll get to it in a couple of minutes, but we have about 140 online fantasy sports operators in India. That number is not as exciting as just the growth. You look at it, it was at 10 in 2016, 70 in 2018. So something has shifted in the last 2 years, and you'll start to see one of the companies that has caused this shift. Not surprising, again, that cricket takes over 85% of the fantasy gaming market share. cricket is in our blood. Cricket is it's where we are some of the best athletes in the world. So cricketers in the world are here in this country, and there's some amazing cricket properties that we all get to consume. Also, cricket is a great sport for fantasy because of how many different overs there are, and how many bowls, and all the different ways that you can predict certain outcomes of the game. And plus, a lot of the fans just know the cricketers as well, so they feel more comfortable and more excited to play fantasy. That being said, we're starting to see that certain fantasy operators are bringing people in through cricket, and then hoping that they'll start to wean them onto other sports as well, which I do believe would be the case. A company called Dream 11, which many of you would have heard of, is just has a remarkable story. I could do a whole presentation on Dream 11. They have 90% of the fantasy market. So they've just figured out what is exciting and attractive to an Indian consumer in this case, and how to get them to play their fantasy game, maybe over others or in addition to others. And that's what we've seen. It's India's first unicorn sports company. They've launched new companies. A company called FanCode, which I highly recommend those watching this look up. FanCode is just doing some great work in aggregating different types of content to provide a 360 solution to any fans in terms of whatever they want to consume in sport. DreamX is an accelerator, and then the Dream Sports Foundation as well. The company is currently valued at $2.5 billion, and they're starting to invest their money in different ways to build more awareness, something I will touch on in a second. So when we talk about the future of sports tech in India, we talked about kind of what's happening now, but where are we all going? The last, since 2008, we've had a number of leagues pop up in India. The Indian Premier League, the Cricket League being the number one by far. But we've seen some pretty interesting movement in football with the Indian Super League and the Hero I League. We have a fantastic case study in the Kabaddi League, the Pro Volleyball League, the Ultimate Table Tennis League, and soon a very ancient and dear sport to many Indians called Kho-Kho will come up with the Ultimate Kho-Kho League. And we'll start to see probably more come up in badminton and field hockey and so on. What this does is that as more leagues grow, get established, more international technical resources come in, and just the Indian population are also going to be demanding a lot more access to technology as they develop their leagues, they develop their teams, they develop their grassroots programs. You're going to start to see the need for more tech companies to come in. Also on the broadcast side, I've seen an incredible amount of investment from Star Sports, Sony, and others to make the viewing experience much better with the use of technology, drone, and others. And that's going to keep growing as the consumer's appetite and expectations grow as well. We have a very, very big focus and a priority that's being put on grassroots and elite player development in this country. And Khelo India, it's an initiative set up by the government of India. It's been fantastic. All ages and different types of ways of competitions and festivals and training programs that are under the guise of the government of India has launched. Reliance Foundation has a fantastic program called Young Champs. There's a number of leagues that take place across the country, and they all funnel into a elite youth academy that is based in Navi Mumbai. And actually that team won a match against Manchester United's U14s or so when they were here earlier this year as well. And it's where you'll start to see a lot more of the better players in India coming out of. The All India Football Federation has set up baby leagues, something that was much needed in our country. Youth leagues as well for U13, U15, and U18, which is happening all over India. My company, the company I work with, India On Track, we work closely with the NBA, with La Liga, and with Major League Baseball to run grassroots programs and elite player development programs. Not all of these are bringing in data and tech into everything we do. Some are pay to play, some are grassroots programs. But what will happen over time is that there's going to be a bigger demand for from the players, from the coaches, from other stakeholders, that we get more data integrated into these programs as well. And I think a lot of the data providers and the companies that are involved in that space will start to take advantage of that and leverage that. We talked about OTT platforms. So 54% of Indians are watching sports on OTT. And this is something that has just exploded. Even the current Indian Premier League that's actually taking place in the United Arab Emirates, about 10 million or so people are watching matches on Disney plus Hotstar. And, for myself, I live in Mumbai. I love watching sports. And I gave up on cable TV about a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. And I can get everything I want on Disney plus Hotstar now, Sony Live, GeoTV. I watched the El Clasico on Facebook because Facebook has the rights to the to La Liga in India. And it's incredible how easy it is to just watch sports on these platforms. And I also see this growing as more and more people get comfortable with the OTT platform. The sponsorship landscape is really changing as well. Years ago, you would find the title sponsors of the IPL or BCCI would be real estate development companies, or there would be beverage companies like Pepsi or Coca-Cola, or there would be phone companies, phone providers, or handset providers. Completely shifted now. These three companies, Dream11, Unacademy, and Cred, they are some of the biggest sponsors of the current edition of the Indian Premier League. And in Byju's is a learning app that has taken the country by storm. They're a title sponsor of the Indian national cricket team. And just of these four, if you add up the investment in cricket from these four companies alone, you would get about over $100 million of sponsorship investment. That's not including their activations and everything else. And that's something that's just exciting because it shows that there's a new category that us in the industry can tap into for sponsorship. But it's also great for them because it means that more awareness is going to be about, come from Indians for their properties and their services, and hopefully they get more money and they can invest more into sponsorship as well. Finally, and this is also worth another presentation, so I'll just touch on it briefly. Esports is also a hot topic in this country for the right reasons. The demographic makes a lot of sense. Data is so cheap; it's easy to get access to, play a lot of different games and different consoles and mediums, different parts of the country. You have international organizations. So I mentioned a couple here that have either established themselves in India through setting up an office here, or they have activities running here, Fnatic or First Games or Loco or Riot Games, Not Even Gaming. And this will continue. There are challenges. It's not that, Indians love esports, the Indians are gamers, there's data is cheap, we're just gonna all be billionaires if we get into esports. There are definitely some intrinsic challenges, which I won't go too deep into, but it's a growing landscape. More and more people are seeing esports as a career option. There's investment coming in right now, and it is an exciting space. The COVID has also created awareness that, hey, you know what, it's not wait till tomorrow. The time is now to make esports something that people who are serious in the sports industry start to invest in as well. So I'll end it there. This was just a quick snapshot of what's happening in the world of sports in India, and especially in the areas of digital, in the areas of tech, and in the areas of data. I hope that provided you with a general understanding. This country is very fascinating. There's a lot going on over here, and I would hope that those who are watching or not in India spend some time researching and maybe take a trip over here when it's safe to learn more about the growth of the sports industry in this country.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for all that information, Neel. That was quite a lot to cover in just those 20 minutes or so. So thank you for that. We just have a couple minutes here, so we wanted to get to some of the questions from the audience. So we have one from Clint, who says, just quickly, seemingly the areas of broadcast, he mentions OTT and social media, abundance of rights, fan engagement, mobile delivery, apps, that's all progressing well. In your view, what is an aspect of sports or sports technology that is lagging in India that is looking for a solution?
Thank you, Clint, for putting me on the spot here. I would say, wow. Actually, the one is there, but it's not at the fault of, I'd say, India because of the infrastructure challenges. But the biggest one is, stadium technology that's integrated into stadiums. that's going to enhance the consumer experience. As I mentioned, I'm from the U.S. I go back there quite often. I get to go watch a lot of NBA and Major League Soccer and other matches, and it's a different viewing experience there. When I go watch a game here, whether it's ISL and even if it's IPL, it's not. It's so far behind in terms of from the ticketing, the whole journey of the support of the person who's coming over to watch the match. And I think if somebody can help get on the front end when stadiums are getting built to create some sort of engaging consumer journey, then I would be a big believer that would be something of value over this country.
Very good. And Clint just responded in the chat. He says, sorry for putting you on the spot.
Please do.
All right. Very cool.